One.
And it is that time once again. No pithy comment this week about whether or not we're recording. I had a long weekend. I'm tired.
Yeah.
But I shall summon strength for our listener and produce the worst 2 hours in all of sports. That's right. I'm Mike, and this is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I'm joined, as always, by my compatriot, co-host, and producer, Stead. How you doing?
Yeah, like you, man. I'm tired, but I watched a good amount of games this weekend, so I am looking forward to getting on here and chatting a little bit about what's going on, because there is some interesting stories that are happening right now.
So I was we were getting our house, we were getting our condo painted, and it came out nice. So we were staying over at some friends' houses, and yeah, this was Saturday night, and I think we went through 3 or 4 mason jars of good old-fashioned West Virginia hooch.
Oh, nice.
I'm still recovering.
Yeah. Anything that has West Virginia in front of it, you're going to have to spend some time recovering, brother.
Yeah.
I love West Virginia, though. I love West Virginia. That place is great.
That is something that they do well. And he was getting insulted because we thought we were trying to compare whether or not the stuff that we get from Virginia is better than the stuff that we get from West Virginia. I am not a connoisseur of moonshine enough to know. I know that when I like to taste it, and I know if it doesn't totally wreck me the next morning, it's probably some good stuff. I like to taste. This one did not wreck me the next morning, but we had some apple pie. There was a little bit of blackberry.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Lemonade. The lemonade was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good stuff.
Nice. Nice. Yeah,
so,
man. West Virginia is underrated. I mean, I've hung out there a few times. They got some good stuff over there. It's underrated. Nice people too. Very nice people.
Got myself a good little glass of bourbon. From there across the city. Yeah, it was a good time.
Nice.
All while waiting on a pork shoulder that was supposed to be done.
Oh, wow.
That never got done.
I was gonna say, you're recovering from a lot. You had a pork shoulder too, man.
Well, they wanted to do the pork shoulder and they didn't. The one lady that we were staying with asked her husband to do a pork shoulder, and he prepped it, but he didn't get it in the smoker overnight.
Right.
And he didn't get it in until about 8 o'clock, and he's trying to tell her, like, look, there's no way this thing is going to get done until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Well, can't you speed it up? Not really. Like when pork butt, when you're doing it low and slow, it's a matter of when it gets up the temperature, and it's going to let you know when it decides to get ready. And it is not going to get done a minute before it decides that it's ready.
No. Pork butt lets you know when it's ready. You're not the other way around.
No, and that's something that I do want to do. Like when I get enough property, get a good old smoker and have it.
I got this grill I'm looking at right now that has half of it is a gas grill, half of it's a charcoal grill, and it's got the smoker attached on the side. So I'm looking at trying to get
that's a nice pit right there.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I gotta save up.
Well, I know where I'll be this summer.
Backyard is gonna be lit this summer.
We'll get a couple. We'll start off small though. We're not gonna do a pork butt. We'll do let's start off with a good brisket.
Yeah, get a good brisket, and also give me some whole bird, split down the middle. Debone it, lay it flat.
I think that I'm gonna start with the egg. Get a good green egg, and smoke some turkey. Hopefully, I'll get it up to the point where I can smoke a turkey for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I haven't tried that yet.
You haven't tried smoking a turkey?
No.
I don't know if you know about, but we don't normally do shameless plugs. But up on Rockville Pike, right around the corner from us, there's a place called Mission Barbecue.
I know Mission Barbecue. I haven't been there yet. Is it worth it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Their smoked turkey is so good.
Yeah, there was one out in Laurel that I've been meaning to go to. I'm not the biggest like meat eater, so I just haven't gone. And plus, also, I have a thing about barbecue that that's another story. But yeah,
they do good barbecue. They do really good barbecue.
Yeah, I need to give
their stuff. Yeah, go give them a whirl because they're really worth it. So, I mean, but the point of the story was, my friend woke me up at about 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and he's like, he turned on the TV. He's like, why aren't you down here watching? Manchester United is playing. I'm like, I know doggone well Manchester United's not playing.
Yeah.
Oh, Manchester City playing.
Right.
Trying to explain to him that now I don't know how much of this was just him having a go with me and being sarcastic because he felt like busting my stones a little bit.
Mm.
Like, same thing. I said, you do understand that they're two different teams. Like, Manchester's a very big, and I find myself when people do that getting very, very indignant about it. Like, hey, I know my sport. B, I watch my sport pretty religiously, but I don't need to watch every game every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I did watch some of that. I definitely watched the Brighton game in between.
Yep.
Like, I was dual screening the Brighton game
Mm-hmm.
and the rugby because,
Mm-hmm.
be honest, it was a matter of seeing how badly Ireland would beat Italy.
Yeah, I punted that game. I was like, look, anything that says Italy in this particular Six Nations tournament, I wasn't going to watch. But I was really, really psyched for the Wales England game, and I was not disappointed. I
Was
was
a
not
really
disappointed.
good
That was a
game.
really good game.
And
That was a really good game. And England, the penalties, they just couldn't. They couldn't get the penalty situation right. I feel like that really cost them the game because they were coming back strong, especially at the end of the first half.
The funny thing about rugby, though, and that sort of Six Nations rugby, that sort of baffles me. Like, we know New Zealand's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Australia is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
They were good last year. They'll be good this year. They'll be good next year,
Mm-hmm.
right? South Africa will have their runs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can have a good team
mm-hmm.
for a couple of years and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe
and then
not
down.
so
Yep.
down, and then they'll. But the vacillations amongst the Northern Hemisphere teams, and mostly I point to England, Wales, and Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
How radically they can vacillate from year to year is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like, last year, England looked dominant, and everybody was talking about England this, England that,
Right.
England this, England
Right.
that. Now they're like, Eddie Jones needs to be fired. Can the whole entire team? They all stink.
Right. And Ireland, man, I mean, you can't really trust them. Well, what was it? Can't really trust them. I just brought Cam in as soon as he came in because I was like, look, we're talking rugby. Cam, you're coming in. You're going to talk rugby. So just come on.
Yeah. But Ireland, what was it, 3 years ago? They won the Six Nations.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last couple of years, they've been down.
Mm-hmm.
But you really feel like it's the great equalizer. I don't know. Cam, jump on in with this one.
Mm-hmm.
If I had told you at the beginning of this tournament that you would have seen Wales win the Triple Crown,
and Ireland only having one win.
Ireland only having one win,
mm-hmm.
but still in a position where they may not finish last, depending on how the other results go, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I told you Ireland were going to be as bad as they were, England was going to look as poor as they have throughout much of this tournament. Remember, England's played, 3 games and only has one win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus last year, I don't think who would have thought that Wales, we would be saying seriously, it would be Wales. France, we kind of saw in the World Cup and Six Nations last year, we kind of said, okay, this French team is getting good. Yeah, I know they've kind of been just a nod over Italy, but the benefits of the Pro League and France and all that sort of stuff, they've put together a pretty decent team. They're going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked at just how good Wales has looked from a team, 2 years ago where everybody was like, they don't deserve to be here. They're absolutely the worst, yada, yada. And then, what was it, 2 years before that, they won it. It's just the vacillations that it takes. And you almost feel as though it doesn't matter what it is coming into that tournament. If you can get together a team and for test rugby, and you can gel really quickly and figure out, and you can get your star player to play effectively, then it's there for you. I mean, Ireland, Johnny Sexton hasn't been nearly as good as he probably needed to be, right? I think there was a game he missed because of injury or suspension, the concussions, whatever it is. Johnny Sexton, who was the former player of the year a couple of years ago, just hasn't been there for him. Owen Farrell, and they're ready to skin him over in England. And 2 years ago, like, he was the greatest player in the world. I don't know. So I know Scotland wasn't playing, Cam, but I'm sure you watched some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominant game, as you were talking about, against England. Unbelievable game. Really, I thought it was good. It was really, really a solid game for sure. Obviously, definitely missing out on the Scotland-France game, which I don't think has been rescheduled yet. I haven't seen
it hasn't.
Like that. Okay.
I think if it was it's weird though,
because there's another 2-week break too.
Right.
There's another 2-week break. They're thinking they can get it in then, maybe even play midweek. The guys got to get back to their club teams, the international, so they can't do it outside of the international break. It'd be one of those things though where you were like, okay, we can postpone it for a while, but they kind of have to play it, because if they don't,
Right.
France
is desperately going to want to play that game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think Scotland,
they have a shot to win.
Yeah, I think Scotland, it was unfortunate. I think they were really building steam. Still kind of running off that England victory, and I think we would have had a really, really good shot this weekend for sure. So unfortunately, I think this break is actually going to be probably more detrimental, I think, to Scotland than it is to France.
And going back to the England-Wales game, I know I said this earlier, but right before I brought you in, but we were discussing how the first half, Wales was playing very strong defense, but also the way they were able to just slowly increment themselves down the field, get some pretty gritty tries in there. And then you saw England really turn it around, and England got some good turnovers. They're pushing down the field. Itoje, the big Nigerian
Maro
Itoje was a monster. And then you saw in the second half, the thing that seems to be England's problem is just the penalties. They just kept giving away the 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. And Wales was able to pull away, and England just couldn't seem to mount any sort of offense in the second half. And, it just seemed like it's almost like England lost that game more than Wales won it, but take nothing away from Wales because they also scored 4 tries. So
they also have to be able to put England in the position where they're going to concede those penalties.
Yeah, exactly. And they did. Exactly. Wales did the same thing with Scotland, actually. Yeah. That was a big part of Scotland's loss that second half, where they continually they started racking up these penalties.
Yeah.
So it seems like Wales, part of their game plan is really to kind of push these penalties.
Yeah. And really kind of stay in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again, I'm speaking as a newbie to rugby, but it's really just the game itself is just sucking me in. I mean, totally sucking me in.
Well, next thing I know, you're going to be watching like the Premiership and rugby.
I've already started. I'm not going to lie, man. I've already started because you know what? After the big games are over, and especially before they get rid of it, the NBC Sports Network, you get Premiership Rugby on there. And I was just reading about Sakarans and how they just went. They got some administration last year, got relegated down to the second league of the.
Well, that was what I was going to bring up. Is the fact that a lot of the guys, Owen Farrell, the Vinipola brothers, and Maro Itoje,
excuse me, I said it wrong.
All play for Saracens.
I think that's a beer. Saracens.
They all play for Saracens, and Saracens hasn't played a game yet. So these guys really haven't played a competitive fixture outside of the Six Nations, and who knows how long. I mean,
but I believe they won the Premier League just a few years ago.
Well, they'd won it like 3 or 4 times in a row, but they had violated the salary cap rules. Absolutely. And they basically kept deducting points from Saracens until there was absolutely like no way.
Oh, they lost 35 points. Like 35 points. Like,
man. It was 35 points the last time.
Yeah.
After they had already docked them like 10. And then another 12, and they kept winning the games, and they kept coming back, and it was like, oh man, they might actually, you know what? This time we're going to dock you 35 points. We're going to ensure that you guys finish in dead last place and you get relegated.
Yeah,
and they're trying to figure out now because of COVID, like how they're going to handle promotion because they're not relegating any teams.
Right.
But certainly Saracens is going to be like, hey, look, we served our penalty. We played down here for 1 year, like you told us to. If we want our shot to get back, like, we took our lumps, we admitted that we did wrong. This was supposed to be a 1 year thing. Kind of like Juve.
And you still have 4 guys that are on the national team. You have 4 players on the national team, so you should.
They would have had more, but some of them left because they couldn't pay them.
But even with your 4, nobody has 4 teams on a national team that should be playing in the second division. That's ridiculous.
Well, hey, like I said, the closest that I have come to something like that was Juve after the Calciopoli scandal,
right?
When a bunch of their guys like Buffon and Pirlo and all of those guys actually just kind of like took the year, hung around, and played in Serie B for the year, and we're like, you know what, we're gonna take a year off. It's like a vacation.
Get fat.
We're gonna barnstorm these small 10,000 seat arenas all up and down the country in Serie B.
They had a blast doing it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went down, but I mean, imagine how much fun like Chiellini and Buffon and those guys all had. The mercenaries, Zlatan, all left, but the core of that team, and part of the thing is like, that was sort of it got their finances back in order. They were able to build from that, and that was what 5 years later they're back in the Champions League final for the first time,
and they've won.
It's a doggone shame
that
Buffon never. It's a doggone shame that Buffon never won one.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest shame of everyone. The one player who I say that too. I will speak personally. That's just a player that I have always had the utmost respect for, which is the way, not just how good he is as a keeper, but the way he carries himself on the field and how much the other teams and the referees and how he's very respectful and everyone respects him as a player. I mean, and even at 39, 40, he was still probably the best goalkeeper in the world.
Yep.
And the fact that he didn't win one, it really does. That bothers me. That's probably the only player that it bothers me for. I don't care about Zlatan not getting one. Even though I love Zlatan, I don't really care.
Zlatan has one.
I thought he didn't have one.
No, Zlatan won one with Inter.
I thought he was on Barcelona that season.
Oh, he was on Barcelona. But if he was on Barcelona, then he won that one with Barca. He's won one. He has to have won one.
That's what I say. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, I heard that somewhere. It's not like I have to look up everything I say on this podcast, right?
Yeah, no, we're not fact checking you that much. Totti doesn't have one. That would be another one that
understandable considering he played with Roma his whole career.
But that's the thing. That's kind of the thing. Great player, but as Stead fact checks himself, Cam, the other shoe officially dropped at Celtic Park.
Yep.
I don't know whether it was by mutual consent, waiting him out long enough. Neil Lennon's better angels got the better of his demons, whatever, but he has left the club. Where do the boys go from here?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, I've seen God knows how many names thrown out there, lists from A to Z. But I think what it's going to come down to is really how the board wants to approach this change in management. Do they want to kind of go into a full project, a complete overhaul of the whole club, bring in someone that's going to change everything, or bring in someone, like Steve Clark, who's going to steady the ship, a veteran of Scottish football. I think the names I've really seen thrown around, and, of course the journalists are going to write what they write, but one of them saying that, Eddie Howe, his name's been brought up in the board. And then, Steve Clark as well. There's also another one I saw today, which I actually had never heard of this guy. I think it's Maresca, something like that. He coaches the Man City under 23s.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he seems to, kind of follow, Pep's playing style. The under 23s are top of their table. However, this would be his first time coaching as head coach. So at this point in time, I have almost no idea who they're going to pick. There has been talk that the board, Lowell, wants to put big money into this. So it could be another situation where we get someone like Martin O'Neill or Brendan Rodgers, that kind of size coach into the club. So again, it'll depend.
It's interesting that Martin O'Neill had a pretty good reputation when he took over Celtic. Certainly Brendan Rodgers had been the manager of Liverpool. It was kind of understandable why he would take that job, though. I know he probably cost a little bit more than your average manager for Celtic, but when you think about it objectively, it makes sense. He had been let go by Liverpool. He needed
Right.
an opportunity to kind of jumpstart his career. He took it for what it's worth. Eddie Howe would certainly be a interesting choice. I know Stead.
I'm a fan.
You've been a
Yeah.
fan of.
Yeah, I've been a fan of
you're-
his for
you're
a long
fan of
time.
him,
Yeah.
Um, we all feel kind of that he got hard done by at Bournemouth. A club that size, the fact that he was able to keep them competitive in the Premier League for as
Right.
long as he was,
And even finished ninth one season. I mean, that
Right.
was extraordinarily impressive.
but in a stadium that seats maybe
11
20,000, 11,000.
11,000. That's it. 11,000.
They were never going to have.
Vitality is the smallest stadium ever in the Premier League.
Wow.
Yeah. And for him to be able to do what he did with what he had, and it wasn't that he just couldn't really bring in reinforcements. Right? He'd get players on loan,
Right.
He developed the likes of Callum Wilson and stuff like that. But every year they didn't.
I think when they brought in, I think they had Josh King, and then he tore his ACL. Like he had a lot of this is the one guy that we need that's really going to help us stay really competitive, and that guy would get hurt. And I think that happened to him a couple of times as well.
But seeing the name, and like you said, it depends on what way the board wants to go. What is the feeling amongst the fans is there a choice, a direction that they might want the club to go in? We know that ultimately any board that goes based on what the fans want is going to tend to end up sitting with them. But is there a feeling amongst the fans? The fans aren't always wrong in their thoughts about what they would like to see a club do. Is there any direction that you guys feel one way or the other where they should go?
I think the board's going to be held to a really high standard with this pick, especially because the fans feel like they haven't been heard by the board, for months now, saying, "Look, Lennon, you're a great servant, but it's time to go." And I think the fact it's taken them this long means that they have a really high threshold they need to hit for the fans. So I think the fans are going to be looking for someone big. I think someone like Eddie Howe, I think that would really appease the fans, so to say. I think if they bring in someone like Frank Lampard, I think the fans are going to be very upset. I think there's going to be a lot less season ticket holders when things open up if that's the case. So I think the board have a really, really, really big challenge here of picking the exact right person. But, at least from what it sounds like, is they do have some good names on the board right now that they're picking from. So, who's to say what their next move is? But again, I think the future of the club really will depend on this managerial pick.
Let me just say this really quickly. It looks like the wavelength of communication between Sean and Cam has completely kicked in, because look who has arrived. He must have felt the energy of Cam in the podcast and said, "I'm missing the show. I have to get there. I think I hear Cam."
Oh no! I thought I'd missed the whole section on rugby and cricket. My timing's terrible.
Luckily, you missed the section on rugby, but you got in just in time to see Cam.
It's Sean, I will admit I do have a mean streak, and that I can be petty. But then there are some things that go so far beyond it. Rehashing that cricket match from the earlier this week that's just mean. That's nasty. Like I'm a big fan of usual punishment, not cruel, right? I don't believe that we should be like boiling people alive. But if you misbehave, like make somebody walk around with an aardvark tied to their back. So it's not like that. So yeah, you did miss the set. We did talk a little bit about rugby. We're not going to talk about cricket. We are talking about managerial candidates for Celtic, and I was going to bring up that I recently saw just today something with where they were attached to Paul Lambert, and it struck me when you said that, like how important again it is to go in the right direction, because you think like we're just picking 3 names here. Well, 4 if you want to throw in Steve. Steve Clark could be kind of like the safe pick, come in, steady the ship while you wait to get somebody. And I don't think the fans would be too upset by that. Frank Lampard is kind of that out in left field, like why? Uh, Eddie Howe's one where it's like, okay, I can see what we're doing here. Like I can get behind that. I would actually kind of be excited, like give him a shot. I think, he'll bring in some stuff. He's got the experience, much like, maybe you are trying to sort of recapture the Brendan Rodgers-esque thing and hope that lightning strikes twice, but that's not necessarily a bad plan looking at somebody who maybe got a little hard done by with Premier League experience. I think you'd be probably arguably getting a better manager with Eddie Howe at this point going in than Brendan Rodgers. I feel more strongly about him than I do Brendan Rodgers insofar as he just got done at Bournemouth. And then Paul Lambert, which is like, why? So, I don't know how that would, we all go through that, and I know it's even harder when the margins are thinner for a team like Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, the rest of the season is going to be one big long audition, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that the players. Are you starting to get any sense of course, all of this is going to be manager dependent. If you get Eddie Howe, he's going to want his guys. If you get Frank Lampard, he's going to want his guys, right? Do you have any sense of the comings and goings that might be happening at Celtic Park as a result of this? Any players that like are Lennon's boys who are just all but sure to be gone at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I mean, prior to the managerial change, there's talk of Edouard leaving in the next window. There seems to have been some interest from Arsenal. I think some teams overseas too in Europe. I forget exactly where, but there's apparently been a lot of interest for him. So I could definitely see him leaving next window. More so, I think just personally, like a career change on his part. He really wants to move to the Premier League, but I think he's looking for a bigger club move. Whereas I think West Ham was interested in him, and he was kind of unsure about that move.
Not a bad move now.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. So you probably missed out on that one, but I think with the managerial changes, it's really that is going to be, the big difference. Who comes in as head and who comes in as assistant coach with whoever comes in. I think if we got someone like Steve Clark in, I think more players would be willing to stay. We've got a lot of players that grew up in Scotland, have probably worked with Steve Clark at some point. And I think they'd really kind of follow his direction. I don't think we'd see many players leaving under him. Now with Eddie Howe, who's got he has that better ability, I think, with a smaller club, less financials to be able to manage a club. And I think that's where he would really benefit at Celtic. He's kind of already used to that type of environment, not splashing a crazy amount of cash.
Yeah, I was just thinking that Eddie's boys would probably be a lot cheaper than Frank Lampard's boys.
Yeah, and honestly, probably better quality.
Yeah.
Lampard has not done a good job.
If you're going to compare them two as managers, there's really not much of a comparison, I don't think.
I completely agree. Yep. Yeah. And I think if I was to put my hat in the ring for someone right now, I think Benitez is not going to work out. I'll be honest. Don't see that working out. But I think Eddie Howe is a real possibility, and I would be personally very happy with that.
And Sean, over in England, the bookmakers say who's the favorite to take over at Celtic?
That's a very good question. I'm going to obviously have to get up to speed whilst I'm talking. Cam, one thing I would say from an Arsenal perspective is I didn't realise how good Kieran Tierney was when we signed him. I did get a tip-off from my man from St Johnstone that we were buying a very good player, but I didn't realise how good a player we were buying. Do you have any more gems in the team? Any other Kieran Tierneys currently playing for Celtic? Or?
Oh, I'm sure, and I'm sure they'll get poached by a club for significantly less than they're worth at some point. That is the way of Celtic, right, unfortunately. Okay. But I think Odsonne Edouard, I think he's going to be picked up at some point. Christie, his manager is actually his dad, and his dad is really pushing for him to move down south. to the Premier League. So you might see him go. Unfortunately, we've already lost Frimpong to I believe Bayern Leverkusen. That was a real heartbreaker. That one was really bad. But no, I think that's probably. I'm trying to think there's anyone else really we got. We do have Ayer, the big center back, Norwegian guy. He's looking like captain material actually. A lot of people are touting him as captain.
That's a big lad right there. That dude, man. That dude is a load.
And you know what? He's huge and he runs faster than many of the other players on that pitch.
So he's not per. Okay, he's not per Mertesacker. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. No, that man runs. I think that would be a big hit if we lost him. So Sean, don't go trying to pinch him from us, please. You've already got one of our
I'm
defenders.
not going to lie, though. Celtic have developed some quality Premier League defenders. When you look at, Kieran Tierney, who was, when he went to Celtic, was a player that I rated as a left back and a center back. Before him, somebody like Virgil van Dijk.
Yep.
So if, United or Arsenal or any team were to go up and get Ayer, I wouldn't be upset about it per se. Who's to say whether they're right now at 22, he's going to develop into the next Virgil van Dijk. I think it's well known Virgil was a little bit older. He played that time at Celtic and then went to Southampton and really developed there.
Yep.
Kieran Tierney was 25, 26 when he left?
No, 23, I believe.
He's 23? Okay.
So,
I thought he was a little older when he left.
No, yeah.
He had been in that side at Celtic for a couple of years at that point.
Yeah.
He broke in young.
He was an academy player. Yeah, he came through the academy, so he's been at Celtic a long time. I forget what age he joined, but he's been there basically his whole career up until Arsenal.
Yeah, he was playing. That was the thing about Scotland. They had two great left backs and no right backs.
Oh, Tierney been playing with them since he was like 16. He's been playing pro.
But in the first team.
Yeah, he was. But yeah, oh yeah. Let me look real quick. Let me look him up real quick. Let me see. Yeah, he's
Tierney's going for
14.
Well, he signed for you at 21. Okay,
yeah, he's only 23 now. So yeah, he's. That's the funny thing. Like it seems like he has, but he's been playing. He played 23 games in 15-16 for Celtic, played 23 games. So, that was what, 17? So yeah.
I mean, he had the look of a really good left back even back then.
Absolutely. So to be as young as he is, he's still got a lot of miles on those legs,
Yeah.
Some of those players certainly, not a defender, certainly an effective force in the middle of the field as a defensive midfielder when Victor Wanyama was there.
Right.
Like, it's not like they haven't produced players who have gone on to be effective players. And I know for fans of Celtic, it's kind of heartbreaking to see these guys come in and all the players that were in that team that Neil Lennon had that did beat Celtic, those who went on to bigger and better things like Van Dijk and Victor Wanyama, those who you may have thought were going to develop and ended up for whatever reason kind of not. But that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
And it is, I'm surprised more teams don't use it as a breeding ground. If I'm City or Chelsea or something like that, why am I sending players to Denmark when I can just send them a couple of hours up the road?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's what Rangers have been doing with Liverpool. They've got a number last season, the season before, they got a number of loans. I mean, the Gerrard connection's obviously strong there, but that's part of the reason I think they've been able to get back on their feet so quickly. That connection with Liverpool, taking loanees, building them up a bit, keeping them sometimes for more than one season, and I think that's been that's shown that it is really beneficial for both the club and the player up in Scotland to have these Premier League loanees come up.
And that's using the loan system the right way. It might be one of the reasons why you hear Frank Lampard's name connected with Chelsea or with Celtic as the Chelsea connection. And we know that Chelsea has about 2 full teams of youth players out on loan right now, some of whom will never be seen again.
Matt
Matt Miazga's been out on loan for 10 years.
They never even let him unpack, man. He doesn't even have a locker.
Yeah, he doesn't have a locker, man. There used to be Stead, I don't remember if you remember him, but he used to be an old basketball player in the 90s, Doug Overton. And I used to joke, he was a Philadelphia kid. He played at LaSalle. I used to joke Doug Overton made an entire 10-year career playing on a 10-day contract. It always, every time I turn around, Doug Overton was there on a 10-day contract. I'm like, man, this dude been on a 10-day contract for 15 years. Matt Miazga's been on a 6-month loan for the last 7-8 years.
I know. They keep sending him to like Belgium or the Netherlands.
He keeps
like,
going to Venlo. I don't know why they just don't buy him, but whatever. It's like, dude, like I could just see him walking in. Yeah, I'm back.
I know.
I know this year I said this was going to be it, but I'm back. I mean, it's that kind of stuff, though, that like you feel like you're almost making a mockery of it because, we're just going to keep him stashed on the bench in the minor leagues until we need him. I think it was Veve, who's basically Chelsea's youth development squad.
Yeah, for real.
He
loaned with them for 2 full seasons, and I think he loaned with them for 2 full seasons. Yeah,
he's been on loan in he's been on loan in Northern Europe.
Who's he on now? He's not playing with Anderlecht.
Yeah, I think that's where it was because I'm guessing like they finally said, "Look, dude, we've had him for 3 years."
Yeah. He was with them from 16 all the way through 18. He played 55 first team league games for them, and they didn't send it as a loan player.
As a loan player, man. Wow. But so, Cam, we want to thank you for joining us and coming on, and we'll get you back in a couple of weeks to talk some more Celtic. We'll see where they're at.
And rugby.
Yes. The international break is coming up. A chance for to see where the national team is. So we'll get your thoughts on that after all that happens. So thanks for joining us, and take care, buddy.
Can't wait.
Thanks, Cam.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you.
And
Good to see you. So, Sean, how goes it, my friend?
Goes well, yeah. Very busy in my normal day-to-day job, but apart from that, yeah, goes well. Well, it has got to go well after what was a fairly significant week for Arsenal, obviously, squeezing through into the last 16 of the Europa. We got a good draw. We've got a chance for revenge, which is fantastic.
I'm glad you're optimistic, my friend.
I was going to ask you about your reaction to that. It's like,
well, hold up. You want to wait till we can get G on here and bring it up? Or
well, we're going to do that when we get G on. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Leicester game and certainly the draw, because you can either be excited to get revenge or it's got to be nerve-wracking because, I mean, Stead, I think since we've been doing this show, and what is this, 3-4 years that we've been doing this now?
Yeah, I think this is year 4, yeah.
It's going on year 4, so it's a little over 3 years that we've been doing it. It would have been 4 this summer.
Right.
What, Olympiacos is not, we've been doing this show 3 years, Olympiacos is not Arsenal
at least twice. Yeah.
I was going to say at least 5 times.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's like every time I turn around, Olympiacos. I'm still trying to figure out how Olympiacos knocked Everton. I'm sorry, how Olympiacos knocked Arsenal out of the FA Cup.
Yeah, for real. I mean, look, there's 2 teams that I don't want to see in Europe too. Now, of course, you can always throw in Bayern Munich, but I don't think anybody ever really wants to see Bayern Munich. Olympiacos, Monaco, no. Just no. Arsenal's record against those 2 teams has been abysmal. The only time I think Arsenal beat them was when what's his name? The Costa Rican boy, Campbell, was on loan to Olympiacos. Yeah, I think it's the only time they actually beat him when Joel Campbell was over there.
I can remember a time frame when it seemed like every time I turned around, United was playing Roma. We just kept getting Roma, either in the group stage. Like I seem to remember once we actually got them in the group stages, and then got drawn again against them in the knockout rounds. We played Roma once like 6 times in the course of a calendar year. We played Roma more than we played any team in England. I'm pretty sure it was the year, it was the 08. It was 08. Like they were drawn in our group, and then we couldn't get them in the round of 16, but doggone it, if we didn't get them in the round of in the quarterfinals again, it was like, man, Roma again?
Yeah, for real. And you don't want that to happen, because it's hard to beat a team 2 times in a season, nevertheless 4. So it's hard.
And there's always that inevitable one. I'm sure when Matt gets on, we'll talk about United going up against AC Milan. You almost felt like that was going to happen. It comes out Zlatan's injured.
Yes, and thigh injury, I believe. Yeah. I think LeBron James gave him a Charlie horse.
I wanted to get your take on that. What did you think?
Is he out already? Is that what you're saying? Is he out?
Yeah, he's out. Yeah, he's out.
Right. They said he'll miss it.
I understand what Zlatan's saying. I think we have to give some lost in translation here. We have to give some of it. But I think what is really important, though, is that Zlatan is not being true to himself in the situation, because as LeBron pointed it out, but I read an interesting article by Etan Thomas as well, a former NBA basketball player who's now become a pretty good blogger and is quite intelligent when it comes to matters of sociology and stuff like that. But Zlatan has not been shy to point out when he feels like he's being treated unfairly by the Swedish media, especially given his background and being of a Baltic origin. So I found it odd that Zlatan said that in the first place. I kind of didn't get it, and because I would suspect that if anyone in Europe would understand why NBA players of LeBron's stature would be speaking about injustices that he's observing and that he's experienced in the United States, I don't really get it. And so the only thing I can think of is that maybe when Zlatan was here and he was in LA and he was like, what are you guys talking about? You guys live this fantastic lifestyle. You should have nothing to complain about. And he's not looking at it from the perspective of, no, because I'm in this position, I should use this position to actually assist other people to make their lives better. And it just didn't really make sense to me. It would be different if I looked at Zlatan as someone who was perpetually saying that athletes should not speak up and athletes should just go and play sport and smile and sign autographs and make the people feel happy and go home every day. Then it would make a bit more sense. But because we've all observed Zlatan being outspoken about things that he doesn't find fair, I found it odd that he would put LeBron James on blast like that. It just didn't make it. It seemed short-sighted, and it's not going to help Zlatan in the long run. I think that's going to actually not necessarily hurt him, but I don't think it won't serve him well, because, like it or not, he is a public figure and he likes to be a public figure. Zlatan likes the legend of Zlatan. He enjoys it. And it was more of like, too, that it was unnecessary. Like, why would you say that? It doesn't even matter. You don't live here. You lived here for what, 18 months, and then you went back to Europe. So you're not even really part of the American culture. And while you came here, it was fun. I loved having him here. It was very exciting, but it was more of like I'm not really sure what your goal is here, because it was really unnecessary, and I thought it was short-sighted.
I'm wondering if Zlatan was a little bit upset that during his time in LA, LeBron never invited him over for dinner.
Yeah. And you know what? I was actually thinking that. I'm so glad you said that, because I was actually kind of wondering, like, maybe Zlatan expected Bron to like chum up with him. Like, come on, man, you're a multi-league champion in Europe. I got rings. We should go hang out. And yeah, and Zlatan would have eaten that up. He would have loved it. He would have loved it. Mike, you're probably onto something. I think you're onto something.
Snoop Dogg did take Dave Beckham to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffle. maybe Zlatan was looking at the reruns of the old Snoop Dogg show when Snoop Dogg took David Beckham to Roscoe's in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And he was saying, like, why won't LeBron do this with me? Like, why aren't we going out and getting some Pink's hot dogs?
Yeah.
Why aren't we hanging out at some of these clubs? I never got floor seats for the Lakers game.
Yeah.
And he's feeling like
absolutely.
Maybe he felt some kind of way that he thought he was supposed to be the biggest star.
Yeah, and I think they only overlap by about 6 months. I think that was, but that's long enough. That's long enough for Zlatan to, because I think he hasn't been there. LeBron's been in LA like 2 full seasons, I think.
2 full seasons.
So,
but the other thing that you got to understand about this though is, even though LeBron has only been with the Lakers for 2 full seasons, he had a house out there.
True,
you're right. There a lot.
He was out there
during the summer.
He was ready to go
all season.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like he wasn't there or there.
You don't really want to stay in Cleveland if you don't have to.
And
there also might be. I love Cleveland. I've been in Cleveland. I love Cleveland.
there also might be the thing, and I'm just having a little bit of fun, but sometimes there's truth in this sort of stuff. When Beckham came to LA, Beckham was a star. He was a star amongst stars. Mm-hmm. Like, it was nothing to see.
He was here to save MLS. Yep.
He was a star amongst stars, and at that point in time, the league was a lot smaller. Mm-hmm. He was a recognizable star. He was pounding around with Magic Johnson.
And Beckham was only 31. Mm-hmm. So he still had, it was the end of his career, but it wasn't like he was 36,
It also wasn't like he only played here for 2 years.
Right.
He played here for quite a while.
For 4 full seasons at least. Yeah. Yeah.
Not counting the injury ones and stuff like that. He was here for quite a while, but he was a big star. He got the full star treatment while he was here. I don't feel as though Zlatan ever got that in it may be like, Zlatan. We love Zlatan. Soccer fans love Zlatan. We recognize how great Zlatan is. We have talked about him. We have fun with him in the persona and the caricature of stuff like. But at the end of the day, in the pantheon of global soccer superstars, he's way more a Giorgio Canaglia than he is a Pele.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also, before Beckham even got here, he was all over the place in perfume ads and underwear commercials. And
Zlatan's done the same stuff.
Understood, but he wasn't on posters in the United States. He wasn't on the side of buses in the United States. And he also wasn't married to a Spice Girl.
And that's the thing. He doesn't, but he thinks he has
Zlatan thinks he does. Yeah, Zlatan thinks he does. But, this is, he wasn't. We all were excited for Zlatan to come, but my wife was not excited for Zlatan to come, but she knew Beckham.
Zlatan would never have put 72,000 people in Old Giant Stadium.
No,
right? There's just
absolutely
no
not.
way.
Absolutely not.
There
absolutely
are a limited number of people who can put that many butts in seats. Ronaldo might be able to do it. Pele definitely did it.
Yeah.
Messi could do it.
Messi's
done it.
Yeah.
And Beckham, right? As good as Kylian Mbappe is right now and may become that player,
he's not there yet. He's not there yet. No, he's not there yet.
Zlatan's not getting that. Was he a good player? Were people excited to see him? Would I have gone out, and if LA had the opportunity, hey, I get to go see Zlatan? But your average person isn't like, oh, I've got to spend this money to go and sit in the upper bowl of Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, a place where American football goes to die, let alone European football, to watch.
Yeah.
And I always tell the story about how, it was a great game. It was 5-4. Josie Altidorf had a hat trick. He came over he being David Beckham came over, and we're all the way up in the second deck, and everybody's yelling. And, this is New York. What do New Yorkers take pride in doing? We're going to come to see you because we want to be here, but we are going to give you a lot of crap while we do it because we don't want you to feel good about it. Everybody screamed, and the guy turned around to us and said, will you all shut up and sit down? He's the reason y'all are up here. And nobody had a response because that was it. Everybody had come, and that was the big ticket in New York that day, was going to go see David Beckham's debut, his first game for the LA Galaxy in New York, right? And they're typical New York fans, a lot of Red Bulls fans, like, hey, why y'all fair weather fans? You're supposed to be rooting for
I can't stand those kind of people. I'm sorry. That's a different rant, and I won't even start. But I can't stand those kind of people.
I mean, there are certain things I know, like for instance, at the Philadelphia Union matches in the supporter section, you cannot wear red, right? Because and I've had a problem with that on certain times, because I've seen on multiple occasions people wearing like Man United jerseys or Liverpool jerseys for whatever reason, get escorted. And it's like, okay, like, it's one thing if a Red Bulls fan comes and tries to get into the supporter section or something like that. But if it's somebody who's clearly like not from Philadelphia with some friends and they wear the wrong jersey, I don't think they should be. It's the only time that you're ever going to see a Man United fan jump to the defense of a Liverpool fan wearing a Liverpool jersey. Right. Because I had a problem with it. I was like, they were asking, I'm like, look, he's here, like, he's clearly not a Red Bulls fan. No, it's not like he's wearing it's a red jersey. Yeah, right? It is just a red soccer jersey. Right. Everybody else around here who has season tickets with us understands what they're looking at is a Liverpool jersey. It is not a team in the United States of America. It is not like I'm wearing the Montreal Impact jersey or the New York Red Bulls or Red Bull Salzburg or something like that. It's a Liverpool jersey. It is clearly a Liverpool jersey. I think that's sometimes where we try to be too like hardcore in the United States, and you want to be like, you're an American, be an American, doggone it.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I tend to. One thing that bugs me is when people wear jerseys for a team that's not playing. That does bug me. But again, I just look at it and go, I know you do. You did it when we went to a game already. So, but the
problem would be, I felt like it looked good.
It drives my wife nuts. She's always like, "Will you shut up? Stop." But we
all have our pet peeves.
But the one thing is, though, at least you're wearing the correct sport. What I remember, I went to see DC United play Real Madrid for a preseason game, and I was very excited. But it was at the awful Redskins stadium, and there were guys wearing Redskins jerseys, and I was kind of like, I get it, you're thinking football, but it's a totally different game. And I know it's at the stadium, but no one really cares if you're a Redskins fan to watch United play.
But the other thing could be like, I don't have a DC United jersey.
Yeah, just wear a T-shirt.
But I want to support DC.
Yeah, you can just wear a shirt that says DC, or you can just wear a regular old T-shirt. You don't have to wear a sports jersey. That's just my thing. And I know I'm not going to act like I'm right. I won't do that. But
so that was interesting. That was a interesting tangent. I do want to talk about.
You just got a flashback to the days when it was just me and Mike, and we would start a conversation on one particular topic, and then about a half an hour later go, how did we get here?
Yeah, I have no idea why we started talking about that, but it was fun. What direction is this show heading in? I have no idea, but
you were going on about that. I've just found that the statue of Zlatan has its own Wikipedia page.
Oh, does it?
I just thought, yeah,
it's in Sweden, right? It's a Malmo.
Well, it was apparently removed from its plinth on the 5th of January 2020 for having been vandalized too much.
Right, I remember that.
So, yeah. I didn't realize he was that popular at home.
You know what, though, Mike, to wrap this whole thing up, though, I will say this. I think you're exactly right. I think Zlatan's mad that LeBron didn't say, hey, man, me and you are going to go hit the town. I think you're exactly right.
Maybe he wanted LeBron to come to. That would be funny, though, because LeBron is probably the only player who's bigger.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Zlatan. Like Zlatan's a big dude. LeBron's actually
6'5".
LeBron. Yeah, LeBron's what 6'8", 6'9".
Yeah, 6'8". Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's bigger and more physically.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to bring in, after having all that fun talking about hypotheticals of a night out with LeBron and Zlatan, and all that fun, we're going to bring in Mike and Chelsea Mike and Coach Matt to talk a little bit about Man United and Chelsea, mostly because somewhere, I think in the bylaws of all things soccer related, or football related, we're like obligated to talk about this.
I was like, it's like, this is just a bucket of cold water on all that fun times.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say at this point. I mean, Matt, it was fun. Another great day out. I was glad that we got to hang out and watch the game. I'm starting to feel like one of us is bad luck, but at least we didn't lose 6-1. Now, the issue is United has now played 7 games against so-called top 6 opposition. They've picked up 5 points and scored 1 goal. That just is not good enough for a team that claims to be challenging for Premier League titles, right? At the same time, it was an opportunity for Chelsea to pick up points that were pretty much there for taking, and you didn't really see it. I don't think either team, in my opinion, created a lot of clear-cut chances that they missed. The major talking point will probably be, from a United perspective, will be the penalty that wasn't. I'll get all y'all feelings on that one. Or early in the first half, when the ball struck Hudson-Odoi and Mason Greenwood on the arm. My thought is I've seen him given. I probably wouldn't have given it, but by the ways the laws are written right now and the way the penalty has been enforced, it probably should have been. But when it wasn't called on the field, it was almost certainly not going to be called by VAR. A couple of interesting changes. The saga of Callum Hudson-Odoi continues. What Mike did he at least made it to halftime this time.
He did, and was seen icing his leg then thereafter. So we'll see. Hopefully he's okay. I will note, because I actually I was researching a different point, and I found that his average player position on the pitch was kind of far back from what you would expect. And I wonder if he was lagging because of, a hamstring or knee issue. You apply ice to a knee, or if he just wasn't where Tuchel wanted him to be. That's it's an interesting question, but we can talk as we go through the game. But Reece James edition almost had a disastrous consequence for Chelsea later on.
So, well, just in general, kind of what did you think? I thought kind of, Matt, when they brought Reece James on, it gave him a little bit of life. For me, the game got a little bit more open in the second half, but again, United doesn't typically play that great at Stamford Bridge. We kind of had it nailed on as a 0-0. It's just a shame that it lived down to what we thought it was going to be. I only recall 2 really big saves throughout the game. Certainly, David De Gea had a really good one, as he's known to do at Stamford Bridge. Bruno had a shot that went off the bar, and Mendy got another good block. But outside of that, I just can't remember much of the game. From a standpoint, it just kind of 90 minutes and it ended. So from a Chelsea perspective, Mike, from a Chelsea's perspective, was there things that you saw that you liked? Were you just kind of happy that one ended eventually?
I don't think anybody saw anything they liked in that game. I think if you recall in this forum earlier in the season, Chelsea and Tottenham also drew 0-0. And I talked about what an exciting tactical battle it was. This wasn't that. It was it was sort of aimless. Two teams not looking to really drive towards the goal. I mean, the best chance, in my opinion, in the entire game was that De Gea save. The Ziyech shot there has to be better. And I don't think that that Ziyech should probably be in the starting 11 virtually ever. He did have the most chances. He had 2 shots on goal, and I believe he created 2 others. So, but I think it was more the position. What's that?
He's your Nicholas Pepe.
Yeah. But really, Werner or Pulisic or Mount are always going to be better options there, I think. He's got the ball alone in the middle of the box. He has to finish that, especially with De Gea going the wrong way. He puts it anywhere left of center at all, and it's a goal, and he just didn't do that. So the other great opportunity that it didn't even make the extended highlights because I watched them today, was Manchester United broke out towards the end of the game. Mm-hmm. And they just seemed to run out of steam running down the field. But that whole thing was created because Reece James stepped up to try to intercept a pass, and he missed it, which gave them a 3-on-2 the other way. I mean, that would be one reason why Reece James wouldn't be playing over Calum Hudson-Odoi, who's, I think, slightly out of position in a wing back. But
I was very interested to see that direction, and I always associate him with an attacking winger, not a wing back position.
Right.
When you're an attacker, asking him to do that, and it seems that's what Thomas Tuchel does. Are we seeing the start of Tuchelism? You're going to play this position because I told you to play this position, and I'm not 100% sympathetic if you get embarrassed doing it.
Well, I mean, I don't think Hudson-Odoi hasn't really been embarrassing himself. I was excited when the starting lineup came out with Hudson-Odoi and Chilwell. I thought that they were really going to take it to Manchester United. Chilwell and Hudson-Odoi both more attacking wingers than, say, James and Marcus Alonso. And that was the research I did because I wanted to see if Chilwell was further forward than Alonso had been, and he really wasn't. So they sort of just played their style that they had been playing with some substitute players. Now, I know with the fixtures coming on thick and fast, I think Chelsea's in a good situation to have rotation like that. And if this was sort of his B team, if you will, against Manchester United, I almost agree with that because I think it's more important that they get points in their next 2 games against Liverpool and Everton than against Manchester United. So in that sense, getting 1 point in a very, very boring game is it's slightly better than the minimum that you needed. And well, that's sort of the way Tuchel has been. So
pragmatism at its best. Matt, I know you didn't think too much of that game.
I think both teams obviously canceled themselves out. I told you the whole time, Mike, that was there, that this is like this is the perfect game for Pogba, right? Like, Tuchel even said, like, after his during his press conference that, he instructed Conte to do what he wanted to do with Fernandes in mind. And it's like, okay, if teams are going to start taking out, paying extra attention to Fernandes, which they already kind of do, like we need other people to kind of step up. And, Fred tried his best. He had a really nice shot, like in the second half that, was, inches wide of the post. But you were talking about, Mike, Chelsea, Mike, you were talking about that break that wasn't on there. The ball goes to McTominay, and McTominay is the one who ruins that pass. Like, the pass is off the mark, and because the pass is off the mark, our counters, like, if we're going to be set up to counter, like, we have to have our passing pinpoint. And while we were in possession, Mike, you and I, when we were at the bar, we're talking about, wow, like, when we're in possession, our passing's pretty good right now, but we couldn't break through that third line, and we were just really unimaginative. And I think we really needed, I can't believe I'm saying this, but we really needed Pogba. This is a game that we really needed him not to be injured in, to kind of take away from the focus just being on Rashford and Bruno to do everything. Because, I mean, Dan James works his socks off over on the right, but he's not gonna, I don't know. He's just not really going to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And Mason Greenwood this whole year, it's let's just call it a learning experience, I guess. It's the nice way to put it. I don't think he's really been his best. Yeah, I think both teams kind of went in with, like, it would be great to win, but if we get a draw, we're happy with it. I think Chelsea, Mike, was right in the sense that they have other priorities with Chelsea and, I mean, with Liverpool and Everton coming up. We have, even though our next game is Palace, we have City after that. Are we really going to go all in and kind of try to have like a statement game like we did a few years back where we finished second, but we beat City at City when they could have clinched the title? Is that what we're going to do? I really think that, I mean, Leicester's kind of dipping in form a bit. I think that second is there for us to lose. It's disappointing that we didn't go for it, but it is what it is, I guess.
I'm just happy to see that Daniel James and Mason Mount aren't the same person. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think. I'm like, are they really? Or is this just one guy playing for both teams? I never could tell. When I saw them actually slam into each other, I said, okay, they're two separate guys. I just wanted to make sure.
Well, they were created. That was probably what happened. They slammed into each other, and you had the same person occupying the same spot at the same time. Ergo, it created this vortex that then sucked in all the energy of the game and caused it to be a 0-0. Now, had it been able to suck Donny van der Beek off the bench, that might have done something, because when you're talking about, needing that creative pass to spring a counterattack, that was the player that we brought him in to do. And yet again, we can't figure out how to get him in a lineup when we need him. And I can understand Ole likes to play with the double pivot. He wants two holding midfielders. He wasn't going to bring off McTominay or sacrifice the defense of McTominay or Fred to bring in Donny van der Beek. But you almost feel like at some point in time, at some point this season, he's really just going to have to do it and say, all right, I'm going for this. We're going to score the goal. We may not do it, but we're at least going to try. And that was, I guess, it was a game that needed a goal, and it was a game that was marked as those typical affairs that we used to see back when it was the Big Four era, and you could win a league simply by not losing those 6 games. The problem is that it's not the case anymore, right? You can't go through the better part of 10 of your 38 games not picking up with only picking up a limited number of points. Those points are going. That's the difference in between us being within striking distance of a City versus 12 points back and opening. And I think any team is going to have to do it.
Mike, can I say, just branching off your midfield point there, I have the same feelings about Chelsea. At some point, take off Kovacic, put on Havertz, and go for the goal. Leave Conte back there as your only holding midfielder, and just go for it. Tuchel hasn't done that so far.
I think it honestly comes down to trust. Sorry to cut you off, Mike, but I don't think either manager trusts those two attacking midfielders at the end of the day. I just don't think that they. I don't know. I've seen it I don't know. I've just seen it from a coaching perspective. It's like, who you have on the bench. Yeah, they can get you the goal, but they're more afraid of conceding than they are from putting it together there. It's frustrating as fans, but that's just my take on it.
Before we get on, and we want to welcome G into the show, the main talking point, or one of the major talking points from this game, is going to be the VAR review of that penalty. And that goes to, yet again, I'm not going to slam VAR too much for that one and the video system referee. I don't think that the game was poorly called. Certainly not like the Brighton and West Brom match, which was an absolute joke with that free kick. But I do want to get all y'all's thoughts on the penalty. I don't know to the extent to which you saw it. Did you see it, Stead?
Yeah, I saw it. The weird thing, though, I think that's another one where VAR should have just been like, I don't want any part of this, because it was quite an odd play. I mean, at least I think we're talking about the same play. I mean, Greenwood's arm was up, and it looked like it touched Greenwood's arm first. That's what it looked like to me. Now, but I think, though, if you go and you dig into that play too much, it's one of those situations where you're going, you're not going to get this right no matter what you decide. So just go with your first instinct. And the fact that both arms are up and they're kind of doing this, it's one of those ones where you go, just let it go, put the ball down and play. And when you bring VAR into that situation, you now open up a bag of constant speculation where people are going to be dissecting that. So I think it was the right move to just let it play on, as opposed to actually giving any sort of penalty kick. Even though we have seen much less egregious things been given PKs in other games, I felt like they actually got this one right, and probably shouldn't consider what has occurred in other games in that situation. That is just my take on it. I didn't see the whole game. I didn't, but I happened to be, I watched the beginning of the game, and then the whole thing just kind of was like, just let that one go. Just let's not even really put too much into that one, and just kind of like duck your head and run away from that one.
Sean, did you happen to catch it?
Yeah, I fell asleep in about the 23rd minute, but I think that happened just before the 23rd minute.
That's about when I gave up.
I do remember it. The answer to your question is no pen for me. No, not a penalty. I think when they re-showed the replays over here about 10 times, you couldn't tell whether he'd hit the ball first or whether it hit Greenwood's arm or what. So I agree with Stead.
Yeah, they're both like this. Yeah.
The objective part of me is going to say there is no pen. The Man United fan and the Devil's advocate, who also has to advocate for decent radio, will say, well, it did hit Greenwood's arm, but then it also touched Callum Hudson-Odoi in the box on the hand, ergo, it's a pen. I'm going to stick, Matt, I don't think either one of us was too in love with the idea of that being a pen, as much as we would have been like,
except for Bruno Fernandes, he wanted to take another goal.
My take's this, man. And at the bar, I kind of wanted it because I have friends that are Chelsea fans, and I really wanted them to just be moaning about it the whole time. It's just so great. But that's the other part too. It's like if that is a penalty and we score it, the game is opened up. Like I think that we don't know, like both teams aren't going to sit back. They know that they have to get another goal. Chelsea would have opened up. I think for the neutral, I think you want the pen, but then again, most neutrals don't like United, so it's like it's kind of a catch-22 there.
I mean, Matt, I will say this: that I can't disagree with your point about it opening up the game, because like Sean, I was like halfway watching it, gave up, tuned in for the last 5 minutes or so, but I was playing dodgeball in the basement with my son, and I was like, I'd rather just do this. Right?
I actually disagree. When Chelsea went down against Southampton, they didn't really open up the game or do anything. Now, granted, that's Southampton, but I mean, I think Tuchel is just going to grind it out with what he's got, and his system is going to get 2 goals. I mean, it only got 1 against Southampton, and it didn't. But I don't think it necessarily would have opened up play that much more.
And not,
I
It would have been
not
nice
just-
if it would have, though. I
but
mean, it's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
but not just from a Chelsea perspective, but also from a United perspective too. Like, I don't know. I think that like we get the goal. Like we've just seen so much this year. Like we get an early goal, it really spurs us on, and it really like, okay, like we can do this. We can like, let's go for it. And we try like I don't know. We become a bit more ambitious and less conservative in our approach when we get an early goal. So that's why it's not just Chelsea, because I think Chelsea would have to kind of like respond to actually eventually go for goals. And like, would it be back and forth? I don't think so. Like a barn burner, but I do think we would have seen, like we saw at the end of the game a bit, how Chelsea was opened themselves up a little bit to try to get that 1-0. And I think at one point they would have probably tried to do that in response.
I think
I do have to say,
Mike's point's a little interesting in this. Our typical thoughts on football matches are, when one team gets a goal in an evenly matched game, or when you have one team that's kind of trying to hold off in a game like this, well, they get the goal, so the other team's going to open up because they're going to chase it. But is that really the case? I mean, I think that's an antiquated idea in a certain respect, because so many of the coaches right now are coaching a system, right? You're supposed to do this at all times with the ball. We hear Pep talk about, when they go behind, when they lose, it's not a matter of doing something different, chasing the game, opening the game up. It's like we have to do what we're supposed to do better. Execution. Mike's idea about Tuchel having the system of how he wants to play going forward, where the ball's supposed to be, the zones that he wants it to go into. Would they really have done anything different, or just try to do the same thing that they have been doing to a certain extent better, right?
Which would have made the game better.
Well, but that presupposes that they were doing something. Were they actually ever really doing something wrong? Like,
yeah,
Mason Greenwood
gets a situation of wrong, but it could be a situation where you actually are just doing what you're doing, and you're just doing it. You're trying to execute a little bit more efficiently because you're a goal down. I mean, we're kind of saying the same thing, but I get what I get. I don't think
it would have been this open end-to-end thing.
Yeah, I think
it's a coin flip.
Well, I think when you think about opening up the game, right? Shifting out of that 3-4-2-1 into like a pure 3-4-3, right, or something to really get forward. I don't think Tuchel's ever going to do that. We don't really know, because frankly Chelsea have not lost under Tuchel, so they have not been down late. So we'll see. But my hunch is no, not really. He'll just put on a fresh attacking player and hope that makes the difference. That's the way it has been.
I just think, Matt, what it needed was a Chelsea goal to wake Man United up, because we know that their best performances have been when they can on the road, when they conceded first, and then and stuff. So we'll definitely get a feeling for that come Sunday. Well, Mike, we want to thank you. I guess the less said about that game, the better for this, and bring on G. G, want to get your idea on, first and foremost, I talked a little bit about this with Sean and Stead earlier, but how are you feeling after the draw for the Europa League? Welcome back, Olympiacos.
Well, in my notes in capital of saying damn Olympiacos. I don't know, like it just seems like every single year we always pull them, and every single year we know the fate of us. So it just seems like hopefully this year we kind of get over that little hump and actually beat them this year. I don't know, man. It seems like it's fate, but I'm also interested in the Man U AC Milan matchup. That seems like a pretty sweet ass matchup. So, and to be honest, even I have it written down here, the Granada mold. Like where the heck are these two small clubs are coming in? But yeah, Olympiacos has our number for years and years and years. So hopefully maybe this is our year. Never know, man. And Arteta we trust. Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, Matt, you brought a interesting stat or an interesting table that showed how much Arsenal's form has kind of recovered from in the 12 games since Christmas. What are they, third in the form table right now? And We saw that again
Yep.
with a 3-1 win against Leicester. Arsenal kind of on the resurgence. It could be sort of we're around that time of year again, guys, where Leicester started to falter magically last season. It had started a little bit. I mean, the downturn had started around Christmas, but it really got steep around this time last year. You talk about St. Pattering's Hempstead. Is this the Leicester lip? The Leicester slip?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. I mean, Brendan Rodgers has already said, like, for the long season, it's very difficult for them to compete due to their perceived lack of depth. I personally don't think Leicester should be falling as far as they'll probably fall. I just don't. That they have enough players to be able to compete week in and week out with everybody not named Manchester City. They do. And I think if Brendan Rodgers' squad falls out of the top 6, that's going to paint really poorly on him. And I think he'll say again that, well, we don't have the depth at the squad, when it's like, no, I think you just didn't do a good enough job coaching your squad. I mean, really, that team should not be coming out and playing as well as they've shown they can play consistently for 25 games and then chalk it up to just being fatigued. It just doesn't seem to fit. It doesn't make sense week in and week out when you're seeing other teams that have similar levels of depth are able to have some level of resurgence. They're not playing in Europe. I'm pretty sure Leicester's out of.
They went out.
So they're out. So
they just fell out.
I don't think you're in the. Are they? I think they're out of the FA Cup as well. So they're not really. Yeah, absolutely. And their players that were out are coming back. It's not a good enough excuse. I think that on Arsenal's perspective, though, I mean, I think what this really does is just highlights how pivotal those losses were to Villa and to Wolves. Those were bad losses. And I think that because of that,
but if you look at Wolves lately, Wolves have turned it around. They haven't lost in several games. They've been either winning or drawing. So
yeah, I understand. But considering Arsenal's return to form and what they were actually playing for, I think that they should have taken that game a little bit more seriously. And not saying they didn't take it. That's probably the wrong word. But their form was such that they should have won that game, considering where Wolves were. This is also February 2nd, where Wolves were.
You should have won that game. You can say take it serious.
Well, yeah, okay. Well,
they're like, yeah, we got this. It's all good.
I mean, that was the 2 red card game. I mean, that game really is I feel like that's the black eye that's going to keep that stomped out the turnaround. It really, really did. Because now you're sitting there. We're now going into match day, 28, 29. We're getting down to the final fourth of the season, and now you're solely dependent on clubs to drop points, and you're in a situation where the clubs that are directly above you, when it comes to the table, have played fewer games. I mean, Villa's played 2 fewer games, Spurs have 1 fewer, and Everton have 1 fewer, and that's just so now you have to hope that those games don't work out for them for Arsenal to even smell 7th place.
But to even go back to the question, going back to that graph that Coach Matt, put out on in our little text string, it's funny to see that Arsenal is top, 2 in offense and in defense, and here they are, but just kind of struggling in 15th, and they've been kind of rising up and stuff like that. Even Fulham, Fulham's got one of the best defense too, with only giving up 8 goals. So it's kind of cool to see graphs like that, to see where if the season began at a certain date, where things would be. You see on that chart that Liverpool is all the way at the very bottom, and hopefully Newcastle finally gets relegated. But it seems like they always struggle almost every single year. But you look at that chart, and Arsenal is top in both those categories. So it's going to take some time. Like we've been kind of hoping that this whole Arteta and young boys are coming around. Maybe they're slowly getting all this stuff in order. And we are seeing them kind of turn it around, maybe a couple months ago. But it's good to see what direction we're going. And we're 15th. We're like, oh crap, let's get rid of them. But now they kind of going up and up and up, and we kind of see this kind of resurgence with them. So that chart was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, G, you're right. I need what I'm really hearing you say, G, is I need to just let it go. I need to let it go. I need to let the Wolves game. I need to just let it go.
We're
Sean,
not Man City right now, so we got to always
just let it go. Let it go. It's one bad game. Let it go. Sean, go ahead.
No, I've been very happy. If we go back a year, well, in fact, let's go back a year and 4 months. The club was in a bit of disarray. We got rid of Unai, weren't really sure where to turn, and we turned to Mikel, who obviously has been our captain. And if we look at what he's done over those 15 months, I personally have been massively impressed, because it was a shambles when he took over. He had to shore up the defence very quickly, and he managed to do that. He, let's not forget, got us to an FA Cup final, won the FA Cup final in his first 8 months managing. And what's been more impressive, and I don't know whether he's done that with Edu, but they've now got rid of quite a lot of what we've needed to get rid of for quite some time, basically. There were stories coming out of Schalke this week. Did you hear that there's been like a player revolt that's been started by Mustafi?
Yeah, some old Arsenal players over there.
Absolutely fantastic. And then someone pointed out that we've only got Kolasinac on loan, so we don't want them to get relegated because they can't afford his 90 grand a week. So anyway, that's another dilemma.
And I believe they fired. Matt, did you point that out? They fired another coach as well.
They fired
Schalke.
Gross or whatever. Yeah. So if you look overall, we've had some really disappointing results, and so we've had records taken away from us. Like Burnley hadn't beaten us since 1975. People have been doing the double over us that haven't done the double over us for like 40 years or something ridiculous. But he's got the team sort of going. We still have the Europa League thing open to us. I mean, Man U and Spurs will probably also feel as though they've got a very good chance of winning that competition. I have a feeling we'll end up sort of 7th or 8th. But what I love about this year is he's set it up for next year. And I think if we can make 1 or 2 signings, like a central midfielder, definitely one that can run would be a start, or run quicker than Xhaka. But then most Premier League players can run quicker than Xhaka. But I feel that he's putting together a team that I hope will be looking to compete for top 4, and that's really all Arsenal can hope for at the moment.
Yeah, and I see kind of Pep a little bit behind the scenes mentality of just getting the right pieces, slowly just kind of building the team. And we don't really know truly what he learned from Pep, but you kind of see this in the big picture of things, where he's just slowly picking things away, getting things down his team. And the puzzles, maybe we're just like, we want things now. Where his big picture is 2 or 3 years, where we kind of seen it right now. We see this 1.5 year kind of big project where, they're on the upslope right now, and maybe next year, like you said, Sean, he's setting us up for the top 4, maybe. Just gotta get the players, get the young bloods in there, get some practice, get some miles under their feet, get rid of the old people like Ozil and stuff like that, and see what happens. But so far, we're seeing some good success. We weren't supposed to beat Benfica, and here we are moving on and stuff like that. So we're getting some of these kind of good games, kind of these little peaks here and there along the way with these young boys, which is only going to have success in the future. Like, it's such a good thing that I think that he's doing right now. And again, we're kind of hopeful. We're saying that we're, high hopes right now. We've seen where things are down. So let's kind of keep our fingers crossed that we're going the right direction. But things, again, on paper, things are looking like they're pretty good right now.
Yeah, I think the Benfica game is one, too, that you could say that's not been an Arsenal-type game recently. Arsenal have not been able to come back from that type of adversity really at all. So, and I know that I was in the middle of class, but I was like kind of slightly monitoring the situation there. And I was like, okay, well, this is done. And to see, when it was 1-1, 1-1 draw wasn't going to do it. And then when you see the team they just kept battling until they were able to win it. That has not been something Arsenal has done. One thing Arsenal has lacked in the past, a number of years, has been heart. And I know we've, in the old show, Mike and I used to discuss how Arsenal didn't have that player who put his foot in the ball and says, you mess with him, you're going to mess with me, and really, lower their shoulder and say they're going to put some fight in it. And you're seeing a squad of players that still don't have that bruiser necessarily, but were able to just not pack it in and just keep on pounding away until you got what you were coming for. And
Yeah, we're
that
sitting on
was
the first.
not something you've seen too often.
And
You have to
was a
look at
stat
it and
I
see.
heard. There was a stat I heard today. That was the first time that we have beaten a team that was in the top 3 in the league before the game started.
Wow.
Since we won away at Man City in 2014.
And I remember that game. That
Corthola.
was the Corthola
That's the
game where he
first
owned Man
time
City.
in-
That's
Wow.
a huge stretch. Yeah.
That's huge.
So
You have
maybe
to look
we're
at that
turning
game
it-
though and say, hopefully, that's one where, you know, the results that come after, they'll learn something from that.
Mhm.
You know, we don't. We can. I'm with you. I thought when I saw it was 2-2.
Yeah, I was like, that's
well,
it.
when it was 2-1, I was pretty sure they were done.
Mhm.
When it was 2-2, I was planning for the Arsenal go out of Europe segment and to hear y'all grouse about it. But then you wonder, like, okay, so they came back, they got the goals, they were able to get through the tie, and full credit, you know, you faced some adversity and you hustled back. You know, you want to see now though a team press on.
Mhm.
And what I noticed on the weekend was a team that took a good performance and then built on it and put in another good
Mhm.
performance,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You know, Matt will remember what happened after we went away to PSG a couple of seasons ago.
And this season.
And this season. Well, this season I think was a little bit different insofar as we weren't playing that well to begin with, but we were cresting when we went away, and Ole got that famous win in the second leg at the Parc des Princes.
Mm-hmm.
But then right when you thought, okay, hey, this is building, it all went downhill. And really, they never recovered for another half of the season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would, I was going to say something too, because G, you made a really good point about Arteta and Pep's system and how much he's learned from it. I think that's something that needs to be said out loud, is that if Arteta can figure this out, it is going to lay the groundwork for a lot of systems out there, because Arteta is essentially trying to build a Pep Guardiola system with no money. And if that can be done, that is unbelievable. I think that's something that you're going to
without
see
Man City money. Without Man City money.
That's good. Like, I mean,
I guess so, Matt.
I'm the books are off the books.
But Matt, when you're comparing, to Man City, everybody has no money. So
but that's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, Stead, would you rather have, talking about Pep and Arteta, would you rather have Raheem Sterling in your team or Bukayo Saka?
Right now, Bukayo Saka. Absolutely.
So we're not starting with nothing.
Yeah,
we're not starting with nothing.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues though is we all keep saying that, Matt, I can't agree with you more. Like, hey, can you get this sort of guy off the tree of Pep, who's learned at the feet of Pep, to come into your club and do it with funds that don't match Man City, you know, where you're not getting the Raheem Sterlings, where you're not getting Riyad Mahrez because it's fun,
or Diaz.
The other question is,
we're spending £50 million on a right back every single year because you just need a new one. Like, it's insane.
I think the other issue though is, and
insane.
Y'all have, I've heard Matt, you say it, Stead, Sean, Pat, all say it today, which is next year, the next couple of years, the things like that. But then if you read the reports that were circulating a little bit, you know, there have been rumors that Barca might come in for Arteta after the presidential elections.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's a bridge too far for him right now. But we have talked about where Barca is and the constant feeling of need to get back to the glory days. Let's get the band back together. Let's get the band back together. Let's get the band back together. If you're not going to get Pep again, you know, you would have liked to have gotten Tito Villanova, but unfortunately he passed about a decade ago.
Get Pep Jr. though. I mean, yeah.
Pep, you know, like get Arteta in, and I think you know Laporta has basically said he's not going after Arteta, but I think there are a couple of candidates who are seriously like, yo, you know, and would Arsenal be able to keep Arteta if Barca came calling?
We'd get Rodgers.
Oh, yes, that would be great.
Yeah,
It'd be
exactly.
Cesc Fabregas all over again, to be honest.
But it's kind of what I'm thinking though. I mean, there's no guarantee though that Arteta would have the same success at Barcelona that any previous managers had. I mean, without saying it, Barca might be a dumpster fire, and when you listen to their fans, not just a speculative observer, no, they're not. They're very, very afraid, and they're saying, "Yeah, I get it. You know, we have Messi. We still can win 2 out of 3 games and look like we're competitive, but this whole thing can fall apart." And we're looking at us finishing 15th, maybe even going down to the second division of the league, which is like, come on, that's not really going to happen. But you know, it's not inconceivable to see them falling out of falling out of Champions League placement when just from the reports that are coming out. I believe the old president was arrested today.
Yeah, we were going to get on to that.
Yeah,
that's a great segue. So Bartomeu was arrested in connection with the hiring of a social media firm
out of Uruguay.
To badmouth former players.
Right. This is some Richard Nixon kind of stuff, man. I mean, this is ridiculous. But so what I'm saying is, do you really think that? I'm not sure Arteta's loyalty to being a former player for them would go. Would he be like, oh yes, Simon? He'd probably be like, I'm doing okay where I am.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say this too. Messi's leaving this year too. Like. And when Messi, like, I'm trying to give Americans an analogy of this. When Messi leaves Barcelona is going to turn into the Chicago Bulls after Michael Jordan left the second time. Like it's over. Like it is over. Like
Jesus, Chicagoan. So that you just brought up a really, really sore spot for him.
No, I know, but he knows. He knows firsthand. You might get a little Derrick Rose action, and then that's it. You didn't hear me. You might get a little Derrick Rose, a little bit of hope.
He just left.
But that's what's going to happen. And yeah, I think you guys are fine with Arteta. I don't think he's going to leave for Barcelona.
I don't think he's going to leave, but I guess the question is Arsenal that big club? You know, is it possible that he builds this system and they keep him? Or could he be lured away by a PSG or something? You know, when you think about the ties,
if he's lured away by PSG, we'll take Pochettino.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No problem.
You know, how much of it though is how, and maybe it's I guess I'm trying to say, how loyal do we feel? How much loyalty do you feel that he has from his time as a player there? Because he was not an OGS who basically played the majority of his senior career for that one team. He's not Ryan Giggs, who's only associated with one team. He's not Xavi
Gerrard
or Gerrard to that extent, where it's like, okay, if Gerrard leaves Rangers, just about the only team I can see him going to is Liverpool. Xavi has basically said, like, when he leaves, he's going back to Barca. He just doesn't want it to be a dumpster fire. You know, I can't see OGS saying, you know what, this club has been loyal to me, but Real Madrid just knocked on the door. I think I'm going to go there. You know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Mike.
Thierry Henry.
A couple of things with Arteta and Arsenal. But people forget he came to us, I think, at 27 or 28, and he took a 25% pay cut to leave Everton to come and play for us because he wanted to play for us. Now, you tell me any other footballer that you know who's at 28 years old and last contract is taking a 25% pay cut to go and play somewhere. So he wanted to come and play for us. I think, secondly, I remember us doing a pod only a couple of months ago, and he was one game away from probably getting fired. And everyone at the club would have been very sad to do that, I think. And luckily, we won that game. I can't remember which game it was.
I remember him.
Anyway, we had two big ones coming up, and we scraped through, and then we've had some losses since then. I think that he's always wanted to come and manage the club at one point. I think he's grateful to be given his chance. We've also got to remember that he's got no one at the club really to help him sort of bed in. That's another reason why I've got a lot of admiration for him, because Edu's in his first serious financial, not financial, director of football sort of role. I know he had that sort of role in Brazil, but it's not quite the same as having that role in a top European club. So if he goes, we'll find someone else. I think the issue is we're running out of managers. The whole league is running out of managers.
Right, and also, I don't think we should. I think we're putting too much stock in the thought that Barcelona would be someplace special for Arteta. Yeah. He spent 14 years in the UK. So it's not like he spent much of his playing career at all. He never even played for Barcelona's first team. So if anything, he's been pretty much an England-based, UK-based player manager for the vast, vast, vast majority of his career. So I would think, if anything, if the only place where I could see him being lured back to out of a loyalty standpoint would be Everton. So, I just don't see, unless Barcelona is going to kick some serious money at him and have a plan that's going to show that they're going to be able to have these type of players and they're going to be competing for Champions League every year. I just don't see the lure for Arteta to go because he hasn't been there. And don't forget, he never got a first team call up to play for Spain either. He never did.
Yeah, he could have played for England.
That was a big miss.
That was a big miss.
And there's a third
and he's talked about that. He never got his just due for Spain. So as far as Arteta's concerned, this country that's shown him the most love has been England and Scotland. He needs to stay there. Mainly because look, man, you thrived here. And Spain discarded you pretty quickly.
And also, I think the third option is when Pep leaves, Man City might want him back.
Fair enough. I could see that happening too.
I think there's also the motivation that we see similar with United and Ole of like being the person to rise them to back up to the top. Like that's such an attractive like motivation.
It is. You're right.
Like you'd be the guy to like bring the Arsenal back, from
save them,
back to the days of Wenger. That's so motivating.
Yeah.
Like that's the same thing with Ole and you're going to be the guy since how many ever managers we had since SAF, you're that guy. That's motivating. Yeah. And if you do that, that's just, right. I think that's better than anything you can do with Barca.
Right. And Arsenal's not, we're not going to act like Arsenal is on the same level as the big 3 or 4 clubs in Europe, but Arsenal's a very, very big club. And it's one of the biggest clubs in the world. And if you look at team revenue, Arsenal's still ranked in the top 10 every year. So the only teams that are ranked higher than them that aren't in England are Bayern Munich, Juve, Manchester, and the 2 big boys in Spain. And so that's it. So it's not like they're in a situation where Arsenal is sitting there trying to think that we're going to be competing with the likes of Villarreal, Sevilla, and Atletico Madrid. You're not. So at least far as a club stature is concerned, this is a storied club that's skinning its knees right now, but hopefully they're getting back on the bicycle. So I think that the lure of other clubs right now, while it may be there because he's very sexy right now, I think he's smarter than that. I'll put it that way.
Look,
even though money talks,
being objective about it, you'd have to say, as Sean said, it wasn't but a couple of months ago that he was a game or 2 away from being discarded. And who's to say, short of Pep Guardiola, right? Anybody can have a downturn. Again, you can be on top. It's like that Frank Sinatra song. I'll see you when I'm back on top again.
Yeah. But, Sean, you also pointed out, though, that when that was occurring, that would have been a huge mistake. You know,
God, yeah.
it would have been a massive mistake if they had done that. Even when they were struggling, you pointed that out, and I agreed with you 100%. That's going to be a massive, massive mistake. And exactly what you just said. There are not many managers out there. They're just not.
One thing that we've learned from COVID, though, this year is that perhaps as a result of finances and things, ownerships are a little bit less inclined to get rid of managers, which means you're getting opportunities where there may not have been those before. I think we can point to, with the exception of Chelsea.
Good old Roman writing them checks.
Yeah. With the exception of Chelsea. And deciding that like there just wasn't enough in the Frank Lampard era to make it worthwhile investing in him after a year. You know, OGS certainly had his rough start to the beginning of the season and was, you know, Matt, you and I were sitting here talking about had he lost those games around the international break, it was time for him to go. You know, you all three with Arteta were ready. We're saying, yeah, it'll be hard, but maybe it is. And now we've seen where the benefit is, even though, you know, from a United standpoint, I don't think that they're playing necessarily as well as I would like to see them do. I think there needs to be more there, but at least enough to say, hey, this guy might be willing to hang on. I'm glad that we gave them the time and space to operate with a plan, getting in, allowing the managers. So Sean, I think you're right. You brought up before, you know, talking about managers getting only short-term contracts for maybe 18 months to, you know, where would we be with these two clubs if we had cut bait after 18 months, right? One of the things that I always talk about, and I wish that Chelsea Mike were still here to jump back in, you know, on one hand, it's an immediacy game, but then we talk about squads that are not built for the manager who's sitting in the manager's chair at that time. You know, you've got parts on Arsenal that go back to Wenger. You've got parts on, they're very limited, but you've still got some parts on United that go back to Moyes. You know, Chelsea is the vision of about 8 different managers and 9 different general managers. You know, it's then you look at Liverpool and City, where it's basically one manager's vision across the whole entire team. It's no mistake, I think, that you know, City's being so successful. Yeah, Pep's a great manager, but the players that are in there are the guys that he wants in there to fill certain roles that he wants to be filled. Having that degree of consistency will get you through tough times like this. And I think, again, Sean, I'd be really surprised if we see a lot of movement this year. The economic downturn for not having fans throughout the season, you know, you will find your bargain players, like, you know, forecasting, jumping on, if Los had his magic 8 ball, I would think like the odds on Jadon Sancho, and Matt and I talked about this, and that's for another show though, on Jadon Sancho ending up at United are definitely higher this year than they were last year. You know, we may see one big money move if anybody decides to really, and that would have to be Chelsea, pony up the money for Haaland. I don't know why you would necessarily do it this year unless you were so afraid that you can't get him otherwise.
I think there's a clause in his contract, isn't there, that he can go for, I can't remember how much it is, 60,
it's next
70 million?
Next year, after 2022. It's like it's like 65 million, which is basically what Dortmund, it'll fund Dortmund's transfer, right? So it's the fee that they paid to get him plus the salary, right? So it's almost an even money deal for them. They may make a buck or two here, but they're really not going to make much off of having him had been on the team for 2 years, right? That's why when I heard the deal, I wasn't upset that United didn't get him, because I thought it was a bad deal to be in that, basically to be what he's doing is using Dortmund as a stepping stone to somebody else. And I don't think any of our clubs want to be in a position where we're looked at as a stepping stone, right?
Mhm.
We're going to train you up. We're going to train you. We're going to play. Yeah, you'll do some good stuff for us, but basically what you're doing is biding your time here. You know, if you want to play for us, come play for us because you want to play for us. You see yourself having a role here and staying. I get it. Like, I'm always going to be on the side of the players when it comes to making your money. You got to get your money when you can, because it's certainly not guaranteed to you, but I just don't want that to be the negotiating standpoint for future transfers, because once you get labeled like that, it's hard to get away from that label, you know. So if you're a team like Chelsea, maybe you go and you stump up the 100 million because you don't feel like when he has the option, when everybody's playing it, when Barca, when Real Madrid, when anybody can pay the same amount of money, it's basically down to the player. He becomes almost like a free agent at that point. And if you're saying, like, I don't think that we can compete then, so we'll pay that additional 50 million is the penalty that we pay for pulling the trigger a little bit early. All right, so we got about 2 or 3 minutes left. Just enough time to go around and get some parting shots as we get out of here. So, Matt, we got Palace and then the City Derby.
I'm looking forward to it. And then the only shame is after that we don't get to see Zlatan come back because he's out for the first leg. But I hope the Derby game is good, man. That's all I hope. That's my parting shot. Please be better than the other top 6 games this year.
Don't do me a favor. Don't make a prediction.
I won't.
Don't make a prediction. I would like to see.
Predict City's going to win, Matt. That'll be good.
That's what I was going to do.
Yeah, predict City's, but the problem is that this will be the one that he gets right.
Hey, I know.
I'm completely going to hedge on that one and just say, Matt, don't make a prediction on this one.
It's fine. Yeah, don't.
Gee, I know the whole thing, the Chicago Bulls. That's hard. I mean,
right to the heart, man. Right to the heart. But it's all good. It's all good. Hey, the reality is reality, man.
The truth hurts. Yeah,
it does.
You know, and it was a tough run for Chicago. You know, after the Bulls, you know, you haven't had a Super Bowl since the Super Bowl shuffle in '85. Yeah, you did get something over with the White Sox and the Cubs for a couple of years, and the Blackhawks had their run.
A little sprinkling here and there. Yeah, it's been nice. But,
look, man, Matt and I have had to deal with the Wizards. Okay, so I don't want to hear anything. Okay, I don't want to hear a thing.
Hey, all right. Hey, Wizards 5 of the last 6. All right, we're coming back.
Come on, man. The last time the owner had anything positive to say about the team, he was highlighting the fact that they won in 1978. Seriously, come on.
I think we talked about.
Sorry, G, you get no sympathy from me, brother.
Mike said before, you know, he kept on saying, like, you know, we always keep on saying next year, wait for next year, wait for next year. That's the Cubs' motto. Just wait for next year. After the first game of the year we lose, just wait for next year. We'll get it. So I'm used to that. So it's all good, man. I come from Chicago and all.
So what are your thoughts as we head for the door, G?
Yeah, so I won't say my piece about the Derby, but I'm looking forward to actually the West Brom Newcastle game. I'm really hoping Newcastle is going getting relegated, so I'm kind of hoping anyone against Newcastle this year. Even though in the last man standing, I do have my Sheffield United, whoever going against them is my pick. But right now, I might be going against whoever's going against Newcastle. But really, throughout all the series, Serie A. You know, it's good to see that both Milans are back right now, that they're overtaking Juve for the champions. Like, they're overpassing them. So it feels like it's kind of 1990s all over again with the red and blue striped teams coming over again. So it's good to see that the Serie A is back. But yeah, man, Manchester Derby is coming back. I'm not saying what color should win or anything, but like, yeah. Go.
We're gonna get Leo on. I know he does Real for us, but he also does a lot with Juve. At one point this weekend, Juve was down to 7th. Their win took them back up a little bit, but they're 43, having played a game more. There are 3 points separating Juve in 3rd and Lazio in 7th, which tells me that there are quite a few teams in there that are not going to make it. look, just by the simple math, there's 3 teams in there or 4 teams, because they only get 3, I think, in the Champions League now. There are some teams in there that are going to not make it into the Champions League. There's going to be a team in there that doesn't even make it into Europe, full stop, out of the likes of
maybe even 2.
Lazio, Roma, Juve, and some big names. If an Atalanta,
Napoli
can hold on. So there's going to be some big teams, and we'll get.
And you have Lazio, Juve this weekend too, so you have a big game right there. So yeah, Serie A, it's good to see you back finally.
Yeah, it might be worth us devoting a little bit more time to them, especially since we've conceded that, you know, the Premier League is pretty much done and dusted. We kind of have an inkling what the direction La Liga is heading in. We kind of know where the Bundesliga is going.
We knew where that was going back in October.
Boom, one. All right, just give it to them. Not a problem.
Hey, they play 36 games and Bayern wins. So we'll get them on. But yeah, it'll be nice to talk to see the resurgence of some of the traditional Italian powers. We've missed the Milan teams. It definitely hasn't been as much fun in watching Italian football without them. Sean, what you got for us?
Well, I'm looking forward to the next to the month of March, where we will hopefully be victorious against 2 of our London rivals and maybe put them back in their place.
Tough one.
Plus, get our revenge on Olympiacos. I'm not asking for much, really, but let's hope that we can keep on going. I think another interesting little game that we should play with each other is which team is going to beat Man City between now and the end of the season. Obviously, you've got first shot at it on this weekend with the derby. But yeah, so do any of us think that City can get beat between now and the end of the Premier League season?
I think they'll get beat.
Yeah,
I think they'll get beat. I don't see them.
Are you doing a will prediction right now?
No, I'm not doing a will predict. Well, I'm not doing a will prediction because I would never be. I don't believe that. I just think that they. Yeah. I don't think that they can win. They can go on that, and if they did, I'd give them full credit for it. Much like I predicted at the end of last season, as the Premier League becomes more secure, Pep is going to take his foot off the gas. He wants to compete for everything possible, right? And as he wins something, he's going to start. And the big one for him is the Champions League, right? And if it gets to the point where the Premier League looks settled, right? You know, they've won the Man City Cup for the 97,000th time.
They'll give Spurs that game for Champions League. They'll just give it to them. I think so.
That's why I say I think they'll lose, right? Yeah. I think they'll lose one. There's going to be a game. If I was going out on a limb, what I would say though is I think that the team that beats them is not going to be the team that we think would beat them. Like, it's going to be the game where they fall asleep at the wheel, and
like a Watford Liverpool game. Yeah,
Watford Liverpool, like, you know, as surprising as it would be. And I don't even know if they play again at this season, but as surprising as it would be, like for Sheffield United to get a win over them, but I can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
At one point, though, on the next pod, we are going to have to talk about some point as to why everybody hates Newcastle so much. Like, I'm wondering why all of a sudden, like, when G was like, yo, I hope Newcastle gets relegated, I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of with him. I'm trying to figure out why I have this thing where I would like, I want to see them. Like, what did the Geordies ever do to me? Traditionally, they were a pretty solid win for us. It was like, well, hey, I'd like to have them hang around because at least we know that we go there and we play them twice a year. It's 6 points. Man, they've got us a couple of times, but I'm like, whatever happened? Why do we hate Newcastle so much? What did they ever do to us? But all right, Stead, what you got?
I got a lot actually. You know, I really think over the next four fixtures, we're going to learn a lot about West Ham and if they're for real or not. I mean, they have a tough go. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of on the bandwagon. I have really enjoyed watching their games. They're exciting. They're fun. But, Leeds is always a tough game. Man U, Arsenal, Wolves. And, you pointed out Wolves has been playing a lot better lately. And who's to say that we know that one thing that Nuno's been able to do is figure things out when times get tough and pull wins out. I mean, don't forget last season they started out, I believe they lost they have 1-7 for their first 8 games, and they were still able to finish top half of the table. So that's going to be definitely something to pay attention to. Also, you heard it looks like Juve is going to actually sign McKinney full time for 18.5 million euros, which will be great to get an American player on one of the biggest clubs in the world. That's really exciting. And he's actually played quite well for the squad. I think it's helpful that Pirlo has spent some time in the United States and has really been able to get the best out of him. And last thing I'm going to say is, I know none of us are City fans, so we tend to kind of blow over them. But there's a player that I have not probably given due respect to. I've always thought that he was overrated, but that's I really think that, you brought up how Riyad Mahrez was bought because he just kind of felt like it. His form has been pretty damn good lately, though. He has looked really, really well outside that right flank. He's got 2 moves, but you know what? They work. He's got a Robinho-esque step over, and he's able to get his, he looks like a Algerian distance runner with how skinny he is, but man, the guy is effective. He is effective, and he's definitely earned my respect as a quality player. And also, the way he carried himself when he was like, yes, I'd like to leave Leicester to play Champions League, but he didn't. He never missed a practice. He was very professional, played his butt off when that extra season when he was at Leicester, when everyone knew he wanted out. I think he was probably a little upset that they all were like, yes, you may have all won the Worlds. We all know the reason why you guys won was because of N'Golo Kante. So Riyad Mahrez, you've had a great season, and you've really earned your position on City, and you're just as much a part of their championship as anybody else is.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with him when Kevin De Bruyne does get back.
Agreed.
And how, again, but that's why Pep makes the big money, is he's able to try and balance those guys.
Yeah, but we've seen Mahrez, though. He is totally fine coming in off the bench and playing very well. And De Bruyne is not quite back full fitness yet. But I just think that he's a humble guy who seems to be happy to be playing for this club and having the opportunities to win more silverware and know his role and be very effective in his role. So I just want to throw him some props. I applaud his season and his last couple of seasons.
So, Sean, watched a really interesting documentary on Amazon last night that I rented because I'm going to show it to the kids. Not the one that you're thinking of, called Fire in Babylon, about the West Indies cricket team of the late 70s.
Got it in my queue. Already got it in my queue.
Great. Fascinating. We'll be showing that to the kids. Lots of good themes in that. Highly recommend it. Even if you have no interest in the sport, know nothing about it, the themes of colonialism and race that come up when they're talking about that are very interesting, and I really loved how they did that. So I want to give a shout out to that. It was a very interesting one. Matt, I will be watching Pele just as soon as I get the opportunity.
Let's type it in the chat.
I saw it. I watched it too.
I think they have a Pele one.
I saw that.
Yeah, I think it's a Pele one.
Say, I would definitely be
it's
watching
on Netflix.
that.
It's on Netflix, right?
That one's on Netflix,
I think it's
right?
on Netflix. Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah, but highly recommend Fire in Babylon for anybody who wants to watch that. Great one. Just a good documentary all the way around. And anytime you get to hear those great West Indies accents, just a good time. We'll see how the derby goes. I had a run where I couldn't watch them play that game because every time I'd watch, they'd lose. But I think I'm over that. Plus, it'll be my birthday match. Yet again, we play City for my birthday weekend match. Last year, it was in the it was a cup match. It was the first leg of a cup match or something like that, and we won. Hopefully, they can pull it off. But I think Ole's got to win one of these at some point in time this season because 5 points from 7 games with 1 goal scored just isn't good enough, right? So I want to give a big shout out to Celtic Cam. Thank you for coming on, talking a little bit of rugby and giving us the update on the coaching search and their attitudes towards it. Thanks to Chelsea Mike for breaking down what could be broken down at the Chelsea game. Matt, thanks for joining us. Hope to see you soon. Patrick G, as always, we didn't get to talk about another dominant performance by the U.S. women's national team. This team the U.S. women won against Argentina last Wednesday, to clinch the She Believes Cup. I think the final score was 4 or 5-0, G?
Mm-hmm.
They have conceded one goal. They have conceded.
And possession's unbelievable too. It's
They have conceded one goal since the World Cup in 2019. Unbelievable. Unbelievable what they are doing. They've conceded one goal to Japan, and that was it. Everything else has been clean sheets. Just absolutely amazing. Sean, thanks for joining us as always and giving us your thoughts on all things from across the pond. And as always, my brother, thank you, Mr. Stead, for keeping the trains running on time. I'm Mike. This has been the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week.